Hello, everybody. Welcome to Media Monday on the IBM TV network. Today we have a very fascinating show that we're going to bring to you all over the world. And first of all, I want to introduce some of our guests today. First of all, this gentleman actually heads up Bold TV out of Florida. Let's bring in David Grasso, the CEO and founder of the Bold TV network. Good to have you here, Dave.
Always great to be here.
Like Florida.
Because I moved to California, Nick. I'm the one person who went backwards.
Oh, you went the other way. Okay, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, from a no tax jurisdiction to a tax jurisdiction. This gentleman is the head of the Biz TV in Nepal, hailing in from Kathmandu. Let's bring in Dr. Shambhu Pokharel. Dr. Pokharel, welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
Good man, good man.
You're beaming good from Kathmandu, baby. That's a place I always want to go to, you know. So that's pretty good. I'm always impressed how nicely you beam in from halfway across the world. So it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And okay. And also on our panel, we're going to bring in this gentleman who's actually in Washington, D.C., the Tower of Power. He is an attorney, is the host of the show Lawyer's Den. Let's bring in the Honorable William Trezevant. Bill Trezevant, welcome to the show. Good. And we're going to have two more panelists, but we're going to bring in this gentleman who's actually one of the persons who pushes the IBM TV network along. He's also the head of the online dinner party out of Durham, North Carolina. Let's bring in Mark Lee. Mark, welcome to the show. Okay. And we're actually going to have a pretty exciting topic today. It deals with the media, paper, cable, and mobile phones. In other words, in terms of distribution, who's going to win the race in terms of eyeballs? In other words, what people are watching. And just for those who are joining us, we are now beaming through LinkedIn and Twitch. Okay, I don't know much about it, but Mark, I got it to work. I checked it earlier. So now we've added, in addition to beaming in through Facebook and YouTube, we're also now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. I don't know much about Twitch. And LinkedIn, and I do know a lot about LinkedIn, so that's pretty cool. So I'll start with Bill. David Cay Johnson's going to join us later on today. At least he says he is. He's been on the road. He's our resident Pulitzer Prize winner. And Bill, what are your thoughts? Who's going to win the media race? Is it going to be paper? Is paper still around? Newspapers, cable, or is it going to be the mobile phone industry? Who's going to be the winner in this race?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you're watching us. Nick, thank you. Let me begin, Nick, by simply saying this, that John Kenneth Galbraith said that, listen, those who don't know, look, there are those who don't know, and then there are those who don't know that they don't know. When it comes to predictions, we just don't know. However, we can at least begin to put together a framework when we start to look forward. And I think as I was thinking through this particular issue, I'm not sure that it's an either or proposition. I think it's rather a paper plus streaming plus whatever other venue. And it seems to me the framework that we need to begin to think about the future 10 years from now, it's how we get our information, because news in all of its form, whether it's print, digital, or whatever other future comes through whatever kind of form. It used to be in the past, it was through the newspaper, so print. Then came radio, then came television. And now with each one of those developments, historically speaking, and I hope I'm not doing an injustice to what David Cay Johnson may say later, because I will defer to him at any and all points. But it's simply this, it's that the way we process information, the way we get the information is largely going to determine where our eyeballs go. So it was true back then that everybody thought that perhaps radio would replace newspapers and that TV would replace radios. And in fact, what we find after the initial adjustment period, whenever you have a new medium introduced, in fact, there's a space on the spectrum for all three forms. And so looking 9 years out, when we're trying to look at the trend, we have to look at how we're going to get our information. Part of that means that we have to look to see where technology is going to be. And that is going to be based on what our interface is with the information that we receive. So, Nick, at least as an initial blush, for those people, particularly in small communities, or where they may not have technological advancements at other parts of the world, because the digital divide is in fact real and it's going to become larger, print will still be available and still be vibrant, particularly on the local level. Digital will also be significant because the different ways we interface. Right now, it's through computers, Zoom, or whatever other video medium. It's also through our telephones. But to the extent that digital turns into iPads or any other types of form, it's going to be through that medium as well. So in short, 10 years from now, it's going to depend on how we interface. And then there's one more distinction, Nick, and I will hand it back over to you. And I certainly apologize for taking up too much time. It's simply this, that part of the delivery system is also going to then determine the kind and type of quality of information we receive. That is to say, that if my purpose for receiving information in the future, whether it's going to be dependent on what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for the instant news, that is event and then being completely informed, much like the model with the stock market. I want to know what the developments are so I can react immediately. Then I'm going to be looking for a certain type of information. And that information is going to be conducive to me getting it through digital form or whatever is the fastest form that, one, I can get it, and two, I can interface with it. On the other hand, if I want to digest or have that information processed, what we normally decide and call now journalism, that is some perspective, without the opinion stuff, then I'm going to be looking for those mediums that place an emphasis on content value added. That is to say, I'm going to be looking through those areas that are predominantly more thoughtful. In the past, it's been through the form of magazines, and magazines still haven't gone the way of or by the side of the road. So in the future, instant communication, if I need the information, yes, through my interface, digital. If I'm looking for more thoughtful stuff, it's going to be through a different type of medium, certainly print, also more thoughtful digital. At the end of the day, though, it's going to be based on content, Nick. In 2030, whatever form the media comes in, content is going to be king. And it's going to be delineated by immediacy of the need for the information or the qualitative analysis of that information. And at the end of the day, those are the niches that you're looking for, and that's going to dominate. Nick?
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Shambhu Pokhrel. If you could also tell us a little bit about the Biz TV network in Nepal, and then also tell us about what your vision is of the businesses, the Biz TV network in Nepal.
He's on mute.
Oh, you're on mute. Dr. Pokhrel, you're on mute. You'd unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Shambhu Pokhrel, the founder of Business Television, and I'm also the global CEO of CEO Club Global. Telling something about Business Television. In Nepal, it's the first business television we established. I myself established this television. While I started this television, around 70% of the global countries didn't have that business television. So not every country has business television. We started some 7 years before. Now our TV is being viewed around 120 countries, and we are producing the business content only. So our angle is business, not only the business content we produce, but whatever we produce, our angle is business. We may produce the political content, our angle is business. We may produce sports, our angle is business. It's like that. So business angle is our, we can say, identity. So it's coming to the topic. I think Nick has given a very good topic. So what would be the future of actually the trend which is going now, and paper, cable, or phone? So first of all, we have to think if we take medium as a media or content as a media, there is a kind of dichotomy. We are taking TV as a media. So it means TV as a medium, which medium we are using. We are taking cable as a media, so which medium you are taking. But if we tell about the content never dies. If you tell about the media, media may be changed because there may be the transformation in technology, there may be transformation in human social behavior, and there may be transformation due to the ease of technology. So nowadays, if we imagine television content, we think television content should be like this because it's a preoccupied mindset. It's not like that television content should be like that, but we are habitual to have, we are habitual to see this kind of content in television. That's why it's a television content. So we are habitual to see social media. That's why it's a social media content, not that. Actually, if we see the platform we are using as IBM TV itself is a fourth generation television, and so the content is like TV, content is like other cable operators, but the media is different. So in a smartphone era, the content delivery means maybe sense, but content will never die. So if you come to the paper has a challenge because now everything has been changing into the demat. We don't want to touch physical things. So we just want to touch the things which are facilitating to watch or to get the content, but we don't want to touch paper. We don't want to carry such things. It should be air mobile. So in terms of paper, the justification is not there, and a kind of, we can say, rational is not there to sustain paper. Paper maybe we can put in a showcase, we can put in some museums in 2030s, my imagination. Okay. And in terms of cable and other streaming, these are means because technological transformation and human adaptation should go together. If humans are not adapting the technology, there's a chance of having the existence of the status quo, or we can say traditional means. So some portion of paper will exist, some portion of cable or cable based television will exist, but more than 80 to 90% of the content hold will be in your hand, in your fingertips. That will be the smartphone. It's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Dr. Pokel. Dave Grasso, the founder of Bold TV, and also apparently made a bold move to go to California and abandon the great state of Florida. You got to tell us a little bit about that. Tell us what your thoughts are, and tell us a little about Bold TV, what you're doing.
So Bold TV is a nonprofit network that seems to bring down that seeks to bring down the cost of content creation. Pardon my sore throat here. As you saw, my tech guy isn't here because it's raining today in Los Angeles, and as you know, we get more earthquakes than rain over here. So you saw me setting up. I think one of the things, and the reason why I'm out of focus right now, is that the cost of creating content has come down. And this answers your question directly, is that really any delivery method is possible as long as you bring down the cost of content creation, even paper. If you look at most innovative businesses these days, all they're doing is bringing down the cost of content creation. How can we make videos cheaper? How can we pump out content with AI? And that's exactly what Bold TV is all about, is experimenting with these new technologies to deliver the maximum amount of content for the lowest cost possible. We produce over 100 videos a month on a very small budget using small studios like the one you see here. As you're all seeing painfully, I'm not very tech advanced without my assistant. But, you know, if I told you how much this equipment around me costs, you would be shocked. It's only about $7,000 or $8,000. Our studio in New York was closer to $100,000. And that's something that's only happened in the past 2 years. So I think the future of content creation is definitely mobile, as our past panelists said, but it also has a lot to do with who is able to pump out content that people actually want as fast as they can for as low of a cost as they can by whatever delivery method possible. Magazines are not dead. The written word is not dead. But I think whoever figures out how to reduce labor costs, reduce distribution costs, which are a major issue these days, especially with big tech controlling our distribution, they will win this game.
Okay. Mark Lee, since you're on the online dinner party and you're the one who keyed me in to make sure that our shows are broadcast now on LinkedIn and Twitch, I'm sitting there going like, why not? Well, yeah. Thank you. We're able to broadcast on LinkedIn, which has been a great place to do business. It's really a business site as opposed to Facebook and YouTube, which we traditionally. What do you see the future of media to be? I like David's idea. Content cost is going down. What's next on this media distribution? And you were a journalism major, which I think is very impressive.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely glad to use that journalism degree on a regular basis right here on this network and everything. And one of the things I've noticed is actually what David just referred to, which is that a lot of people are using these means and communication tools that were very traditionally in one form or fashion aggregated toward one target market, but they're using them for other reasons and things along those lines. You talked about LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a number of people that are doing live streams, and they're using their live stream programming in order to address whatever their passion issues are and things along those lines. I've seen people that are doing live streams around abuse issues, around Black Lives Matter issues, around just being self-help and business coaches and things along those lines. So it's not always just geared at the business community itself, and that is kind of the stereotype that people had about LinkedIn. And we're seeing a lot of new networks developing. Definitely, we have the gentleman here, and he's been on several times before with Bolt and with Biz and everything. So we've got these gentlemen, but I was actually just on a call yesterday, and it was a gentleman that is trying to launch a network called Popology, and his attitude is that definitely he wants to shake up digital media and shake up the ways that musicians are getting their content out. So he's using a combination of kind of that way of currency or cryptocurrency and the things along those lines, and he's hoping to get many people in that creative space into his network. So I was actually on a call where he was actually explaining the concept of even having a lot of people using that phrase at some point and joining that particular network. I was even asking him about our network, and I was like, look, I'm part of a network. Can we join and be part of the Popology movement? And he was like, sure, y'all can join as a sphere within the Popology movement and all of that. So it was really interesting that that was going on in our conversation that we had yesterday and all of that. So these are some of the fascinating things that are taking place in this space as more and more people are having that accessibility and are creating their own networks, whether that's a network of one, because I do know somebody that has a network basically of their one show and everything, or a network of many shows. And definitely people are trying to grow their audience on a regular basis. The question that I was going to ask both you and maybe you turn it on to the rest of the panelists is, you talked about local media and local media being strong. And I agree with you that local media is something that we need and we need on a regular basis. And that's actually what a lot of the podcasters are doing. They are covering things in their local community. Unfortunately, though, and this is the question, is we've seen a lot of these smaller publications also get bought up by the bigger corporations. We saw that in radio. We've definitely seen it even in the world of small newspapers, because a lot of the independent newspapers that were previously in their individual small towns are now owned by big corporations like Knight Ridder and things along those lines. So I guess the question I have, and maybe Nick will come back, so I'll turn it over to you, David. Is that a concern that you have with what's happening in this world of technology and everything, that some of these big corporations may buy up the smaller corporations? Because even when I was talking to the guy from Popology, he was trying to get us to invest and to join his movement, but then he at some point was like, at some point the big guns are going to come and buy us. That's the reason that we want you to join now, because if they buy us, you will be in the early stages of development and you will make a profit, kind of the way that the investors did with Amazon and some of the other companies that exist. So David, what is your thoughts about this? And would you be willing to get like bought out by a big corporation should they come reaching for you? And the same with the gentleman with Biz as well.
I mean, this is the symptomatic of the entire American economy. We've seen a lot of consolidation in industries, and media is no exception. We're especially seeing that in newspapers. My hometown newspapers in Miami and Orlando have now been bought by, basically this guy who owns 17 houses in Palm Beach. He's the typical baby boomer who buys these companies, strips out all the value, and, lays off all the journalists, and is only interested in basically writing them down like they did with Kmart and Sears, and then pushing them into bankruptcy. That is all over the economy, and I think media is no different. I think there's two sides to that. One, in the short term, it's very bad for media, but in the long term, bigger is not always better. And they don't innovate the same way, and they don't think outside of the box. And I think we're seeing that in a lot of companies on the Fortune 500 outside of media. The most innovative companies are not led by baby boomers. They're led by Gen Xers like Amazon, SpaceX, Tesla, etc. And they have a very different way of looking at things. And I think we have yet to see that wave in media. But yes, consolidation in the short term is heavily damaging to our industry.
What is your thoughts about that, Bill? I know from a legal standpoint, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this consolidation. And I was actually going to add another issue that was brought up in another conversation that I had recently, which is, and actually David kind of alluded to it, which is that too often the media will go for a demographic audience that they feel is the most popular audience. And a lot of times that is geared toward our young people. As my friend Marianne Alder recently pointed out, a lot of the consumers are actually in the age range of yourself and myself. They're in those that are over 50 and everything, but I don't know that the media, including the new media, is targeting us enough. So what is your thoughts about that, Bill? Are we being targeted enough by the media, those that are in the over 50 crowd, or are they going for those that are 20s, even though economically speaking, the ones that are in the 50s are actually the ones controlling the pocket strings or the purses, depending on how you want to use that terminology?
Okay, well, actually, I think a couple of things. I think, first of all, we just have to get comfortable with the term proliferation, which is another way of saying niche. I think that a couple of things. What we've also learned from COVID, and I'm sure it's like, beating a dead horse, although I'm not against it. I believe in protecting animals. But here's the thing. With COVID, we've certainly seen the proliferation of self-publication on a variety of platforms. We've seen, in many respects, an expansion of the free marketplace of ideas. And anybody, and just about everybody, has an ability because the barriers to entry are so low. In that regard, it goes to the issue of content, as my other colleagues have said, David and Shampoo. And here's the thing. It's not so much that... and we're right that the major corporations, those that are attempting to consolidate, they are missing things that more nimble, entrepreneurial, smaller, faster, nimbler organizations are getting and can capitalize on. And that is this, that as the universe began with, say, the big three some decades ago, then we had the proliferation maybe to 8. Now we have a proliferation of a variety of self-publication to individuals who are targeting these niche areas. So I don't necessarily see the future as exclusionary to various markets, because I don't necessarily believe that the nimbler organizations, as my colleagues represent, I don't think that they are ignoring these subsets, because there are advertising dollars. And at the end of the day, we do have to think about the advertising dollars and or the money that's generated. And so if I can have as part of, think of it as a portfolio, my portfolio that seeks self-identified groups, whether it's based on race, gender, religion, geographic region, or age. Quality programming in those areas, much like IBM TV promulgates with its variety of shows. It's not necessarily one monolithic anymore. It's rather a number of discrete, disparate areas with overlapping interests. And it's the quality that will always rise to the top in those areas, because as my guests have underscored, content is king. Now, I happen to have a question for the rest of the panel, and that is simply this, that one of the things I was intrigued by, because obviously content moving forward is indeed important. But it seems to me, not necessarily to use a baseball analogy, but to go there. Right now, there is, the major leagues. But essentially, we have self-publication of content creators that are the JVs out there. And so Mark was picking up on the idea that you raised, which is, David and Doctor, do you, when you seek to populate, and even Nick, when you seek to populate your various networks, do you go out there and search for this talent that is existing out there in the self-publication world in order to grab onto or affiliate with the kinds of original content that may fill a niche? I'm curious about how you see that develop, because quite frankly, 2030, we're going to see people that want one specific thing, and their lives are going to be a portfolio. I'm going to get my news here, my sports here, my substantive issues here, and whatever else it is I'm into. David, Doctor?
Of course, the minor leagues are coming from social media. That's a new pipeline that is suddenly developed. I believe I'm the last generation that was trained in traditional TV. I worked for several local news stations in small markets and worked my way up. I believe that model is now gone. And a lot of tomorrow's stars are on TikTok, on Instagram, etc., have their own followings, and they're brought into commercial enterprises, bringing in their followings. We're already seeing that in Hollywood. Here in Los Angeles, I went to a party at 10,000 Santa Monica Boulevard, which is the famous TikTok building, and you'd be surprised how many of those TikTok stars have now become Hollywood stars, because that is the pipeline. And that is really the future of talent acquisition, is already finding people who have following. So it's a much flatter, more democratic world. That's some of the good news behind social media that you don't hear a lot about.
Doctor.
Okay. From my point of view, if you analyze media from the purpose point of view in the user interface area, there are three goals. People want information, entertainment, and knowledge. Now, for entertainment and knowledge, there are other medias. People stop, except some reality shows and some exclusive shows. People stop watching television or such formal medias, and only for information now television or such medias are covering. So for knowledge and for entertainment, it's already gone. From owner or the structure point of view, media is a power. Now power is also no more only in media. So every person has now, every is like a citizen reporter or whatever, citizen journalist, whatever we say. Nowadays, everyone is the owner of media house. They have one house called Facebook. They have another house called Twitter. They have another house called LinkedIn. They have access. Means nowadays, whole we can say the sovereign things or sovereign right of the country is challenged by every individual people. So we have to analyze these things in from two perspectives. One from media or owner perspective or state perspective. Power is diversified, not only controlled in media. If you check some 20 or 10 years before, if media would try to escalate some issues or divert some issues, they could succeed. Now, not possible. Social media has a strong presence and a strong, we can say, access as well. So media cannot mislead. So streamlined media cannot mislead. Means now the dimension has been changed. In some 2 decades before, it's a consolidated form. Education, entertainment, and knowledge consolidatedly. So mainstream media was carrying this. Now 2 things are already gone. One, the information part is strong from traditional media. So now if we merge, if we left this television thing or media things and content things into the social content. Social content means unprofessional, impromptu content. So look like wherever you are, you start live. Whenever you are, you start live. Not makeup, not other things, not get up. So everything we forget. We just start live. Whatever your position is, whenever you are, and whatever your audio is, whatever your situation, surrounding is, you don't care. So in professional or mainstream media, we care more of the things of setup rather than other things. Now social media and impromptu content has that strength. They focus what they want, not the surroundings, not the dress up, or not the other things, not the makeup. So to the point, whatever people want, whatever people like, they start giving content. So the mainstream media is now challenged. Paper has, I have already told, I don't see any future of paper, except some proof. Even in proof, I don't think so. In my assumption, what I am predicting is it doesn't go like this. After 5 to 10 years, airlines will stop you to allow to carry mobile phones and laptops, because there should be a chip system. You don't carry mobile or laptop or whatever you have as a device. You will carry a chip, and wherever you go, you put chip, everything data, everything is there, and you can use yours as a SIM, and you can use it. Otherwise, it can be retina focus. Whenever you go, you take a mobile in hire. You can have a global mobile hiring system. You will pay for one mobile for one country, but you will get access to anywhere. Whenever you go, you land, you take that mobile, you take your retina or face, whatever you scan, then you will use that mobile. After you skip your face from that mobile, every data will be in the cloud. So you don't need to carry mobile or laptop, other things. Maybe it's my assumption. So technological revolution or abruption will decide. We cannot say in 2030 it will be like this. We can predict as per today's condition, but So when revolution comes in technology and when eruption comes in technology, we cannot predict and we cannot determine. So we can just predict in today's base that social media merged with the streamlined media. Nowadays, no option. Like maybe in CNN, maybe BBC, Al Jazeera, like also global television also started their Facebook channel. If you see Al Jazeera, they have 12 Facebook channel only. They have channel, but only broadcasted in Facebook. You cannot find in television. You can find in even better. So now the adoption of the latest technology and social media has been more prevalent from the more organized and more established media as well. It means content now is shifted from the traditional mode of service to the modern mode of serving things via social media. So social media, which is now scattered, should be streamlined by the good content. Nowadays, social media has a number of content, but no good content. So what we can do from our established point of view, we as a television, we have invested lots of money, we have invested lots of time, we have invested for setup as well, and we have invested for lots of practices with that system. So if our system leaves this television things, physical things, and carries the content and adopts the social media, then it could be the better cluster for capturing the public sentiment as well. Thank you.
Okay, Nick, let me ask you, because I want to pick up what Doctor just said, and because Nick, we haven't necessarily heard from you, and that is this: he's talking about the proposition that essentially says content will move, and that the devices we interface with essentially are just going to be empty boxes, and so the devices or the medium, whether it's paper, cable, or streaming, the devices with which we interface are going to be irrelevant, and that the content will move. Now, Nick, you as CEO of IBM TV, how are you looking at the future 10 years from now, the delivery systems, and whether or not it's a false argument of streaming, cable, or paper, or something else? Nick?
Good question. See, the thing is, I think they're all going to be delivery systems, but what is the system? Paper is going to be around, but it's going to move at a very slow rate. Radio is still around, moving at a very slow rate. Television's around, moving at a slow rate. Social media is around, moving at a fast rate. See, it really depends on what you're looking at in terms of rate of growth. And the thing is, the social media network, I don't know if you saw, that was just announced, DWAC, which is really Trump's new media network, is going to come on board. And the thing is, I think these networks are going to get larger and larger. But a good question that Mark brought out, which I think is something everybody here has to look at what point in time do the independent small networks like Dave has Bold TV, big company comes to David and said, here's a big check, David, and you sell and you're out. In other words, any strong independent media channel is going to get absorbed by a large corporation, and hence there won't be any small media channels. In other words, I think that's a real threat to democracy, really, is that Dr. Shambhu has this nice media network in Nepal, and big corporation comes by and say, here's a check, and now it's ours. And see, Bill, that's going to be a real problem with, if you want to know a threat to free speech, democracy, and innovation, is large corporations writing big checks and taking over the small companies.
I want to point something out, though. It's even worse than that. Sorry to interrupt you, Mark.
Sure, go ahead.
There's already censorship, and there already is no free speech. I can't publish certain videos with certain words. We have a list that we always circulate among our people. It already exists because our distribution is dependent on other people who shall remain nameless, but you can probably guess their names, right? And I don't do videos on vaccines, right? Even if it's a news item, if I do a video on vaccines, it's not going to do well. Even if I'm telling everyone, hey, go get vaccinated, it's good for you, it's going to show up with a warning label, it's going to get suppressed, and it's just a waste of my time. So the censorship, it's not just the big checks. Really, if you want to think about censorship, the distribution side, it's already here, present, and already threatening our way of life.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to raise. Well, a couple of things. One is a little bit of side jokes and everything. I'm hating that Bill brought up sports and baseball because he knows I'm a Brewers fan, and the Brewers actually lost to the Braves, who are now in the World Series. So he knows that was not a good thing. And David, I don't know if you were listening outside, but we're actually getting rain over here in Durham, North Carolina. So I hate that you sent this rain over here to us all the way from California. So that was a little bit of the joke things that I was going to say and everything. But on a more serious issue, but it's actually something that kind of shows the power of the internet. I actually had the pleasure this weekend of attending a major birthday party, and that was actually for none other than Bootsy Collins. Y'all know him from the world of funk and the world of music and all of that. So I attended that birthday party, but I can tell you that among the guests of honor were there, and I had a chance to get on the stage as well, were people like Christian McBride, Victor Wooten, Lisa of Lisa and the Cult Jam, I said Charlotte McBride, but like I said, a number of these Hollywood type stars and everything that I know that in the regular world, because of the internet, I would not have had a chance to go to. And yes, it was done through the apparatus of Clubhouse. So like I said, this was a Clubhouse birthday party, but a lot of people, myself included, were there, and we were there with major stars, including the founders of Clubhouse, because first his wife came on, and then toward the end of the party, the founder of Clubhouse came and was actually calling in. Nick, you'll love this. He was calling in from his private plane. So he was calling into this whole conversation from his private plane and everything, but he was enjoying kind of this conversation and the celebration of an icon in the music business's 70th birthday and everything, because that's what the celebration was for, was his 70th birthday party. But I don't know that this kind of thing would have happened if it had not been for this kind of more open world that we're having in communication. And that's one of the things that I like about some of these apps, is that they are actually attacking a little bit of that conversational things going on, because definitely that app, and I am a fan of it, and I have no investment in it, but they have allowed those kind of conversations that David was talking about aren't allowed. So they are right now. Now, I'm not saying they're going to get censored at some point, but right now they are having those conversations around COVID and around things that a lot of people find controversial. I have also seen them pull people because of their stances as well. So I'm not saying that it's a total win-win situation, but I have seen them be a little bit better. The same with Green Room, which ironically is owned by Spotify and everything. But definitely I am seeing some of that taking place. But I am concerned, as you are, Nick, about the censorship that exists in some of these things.
Yeah, we got shut down for a week on Facebook because we discussed COVID-19. And I mean, the beauty is we distribute through other places. So we distribute through YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, where we have distribution points. But what happens is, if we talked about COVID-19, they just shut us down. I mean, completely. And it was not like you got to argue case. They just turn you right off. And so I think censorship's going to be with us, and it's going to be a big problem. Dr. Shambhu, I'm wondering how you deal with that, especially in Nepal. You're between India and China. And China is very sensitive to what you say about China. And the thing is, they shut down the NBA because they talked about, somebody made some negative comment about China. How do you in Kathmandu, how do you keep these two big powers from just shutting down your network, Shambhu?
Okay, thank you, Nick. I'd like to go upon your last question first, because you're telling about the big check when it comes to your session, then you will be delivering some sort of content. The thing is, people now started watching review rather than content. Like if you put advertisement in television, there is no review system. If you book a hotel, you will see review. If you if you want to go to a restaurant, you will see the review. So review is first. Now people started viewing or analyzing the review, how people felt before when they had gone there. And in television and in traditional media, there's no review system. So people stop believing the advertisement things, and advertisement is like some exaggerating. And the review system, where there's no review system, people start billing. So big check will come until the decision maker is a traditional one who thinks television is good and who thinks traditional content is good. When the decision maker comes as a young and he believes in the digitalized content and digitalized world, then they will stop issuing big check. Okay, so let's come into your second question. We are here in Nepal and India and China, as you told, the censorship thing, except China. In India, last time in COVID, amid of COVID, they stopped TikTok. They banned the TikTok in India. Okay, like China doesn't allow some contents from other countries. They have some censorship system, though there are lots of means to see, and people themselves started adopting, and people themselves started thinking out of the box. So now, in television point of view, there may be some sort of censorship, but when government try to impose some censorship, they will face more public criticism from social media. If they don't censor media, suppose 1 million people will see or will not get chance to see. But when they impose censorship, 100 million people will see. They have put censorship, and this is the content of censored. So they will expose this content is censored. So it means there is a chance of counterproductive result from the censorship. If you come to China, China has a kind of its communist, we can say ultra communist system that they don't allow media, but internally they have internal practices. They get the content from the government, but there are lots of social medias as well. Only the thing is, out of the country or rest of the world, they might be somewhat less aware, but it doesn't mean that they don't have access of information of out of the world. So slowly they are also changing. And in Nepal, China is, we can say in terms of PPP, is the highest economy in the world, and in terms of nominal, if you see the second big economy, and India is going to turn into the second economy within 5 to 10 years. So second or third. So we have a very good opportunity as well, challenge as well, because there are big two trees. The shade of tree may destroy some our productivity, and if we utilize properly, we have a better chance of getting better business and better world, better economy as well. Thank you.
Nick,
Yes.
if I could, briefly, I want to raise kind of this a nuance, and it's a different spur of this issue with regard to censorship. And Dr. Shambhu, I'm glad you brought up the subject matter portion of censorship, and in particular both India and China, because I want to make a point for our audience, and that is to say that, listen, first of all, India is the world's largest democracy, and certainly that's a different political structure than China. Now, India's population and China's population, they represent the two biggest single population sources around the world. And that's going to be important in one particular respect, because one, their political organizing factors are different. Two, their financial economies are different. And so then the question then becomes, they're certainly taking different approaches to subject matter censorship when we move into this, into the future with regard to information dissemination. However, I guess the question is, what about technology-based censorship? That is to say, that when you're dealing with a large population, and I'll just use India for example, where it's an open economic system, but yet you're going to face the barriers where there are people that can afford and people that can't afford, and what impact that's going to have on the dissemination of information. Obviously, those that can afford will get more and more information, regardless of the medium. And so that's an economic factor that deals with censorship, because some people just aren't going to be able to afford it. On the other hand, with China and their communist political organization and their structured economy, they're in a position to prohibit people from obtaining financially the types of technology they need. And they'll be able to monitor the type of technology they have in order to access the information. And so that's a separate form of censorship. Now, you may call it gentrification, you may call it censorship, you can call it whatever you want, the digital divide. However, moving forward, here you have the two most populous nations on the planet looking at the same problem differently as we move into 2030, where even if you have, regardless of the form of the medium, print, cable, or streaming, there's going to be a financial factor with regard to technological, financial-based censorship, what I can afford to consume versus what I can't afford to consume. And even if I can afford to consume, what level can I purchase? For example, here in the United States, we see paywalls all the time. If I want to read stories from the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post, I get so many free articles. And then thereafter, I've got to go through a paywall. Well, if I can't afford the paywall, then I'm stuck with some lesser form of information to receive. Now, I guess my question is this, and Dave, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to come back to you, Doctor, and that's simply this. How moving forward do you address the technological censorship? I mean, as you look to expand and be relevant and deliver the information, how do you deal with the people that aren't going to be able to afford it? Because let's just divide up each nation to a third that can, a third that are middle class, and a third that are poor that will never be able to, in two of the world's largest populations that are the biggest, market economies for information, India and China. David?
So I think that the government should be very reticent in regulating the social media platforms, because I think the free market will kind of handle the problem. We're already seeing a bunch of startups focused on free thought and free speech entering the space, and trends move and government is very reactive rather than proactive. So I would rather see the government take a back seat. Now, what the government could do to lessen the digital divide, what you're mentioning, Bill, is really focused on investing in internet, especially high-speed internet and rural internet, to kind of make internet a right in all parts of the United States and in all parts of the world. And I feel like there's a lot going on in the entrepreneurial space about this. Of course, Elon Musk is working on a solution, as well as many other billionaires in this space, using satellites to provide internet to places like Africa and rural Asia, etc. So I feel like those are the two things. I don't think government can do a lot about what Facebook or Twitter or Instagram decide. Instagram is, of course, the same company as Facebook. But what you can do is kind of foster new innovation and invite new entrants to the market. And a lot of that can be done by subsidizing internet and making sure that everyone has a fair shot through access.
Doctor?
Okay. If you see in last US presidential election, some trolling content was deleted by the social medias. And at that time, the mainstream medias were free to speak anything, but social medias were banned. If you see COVID-related information now, from television you can broadcast anything. If some sort of content is misled, also you can broadcast. But if you go to social media, that Facebook, Twitter, or other social media will intervene you. Whatever you post, there will be one comment, and so there will be pop up. You can see the real information. Means now the censorship is much more focused in that kind of content which stimulates public in more aggressive way. Okay, and from a state perspective, if you see as our earlier speaker already told, China and some country have technological censorship. Of course, there is a technological censorship. That's a country's decision, so people cannot stop. But there is one word called viral. Viral content like COVID, no one can stop. Viral content can go by a screenshot. Viral content can go as a picture format. Viral content can go from any format. If that is not viral, so that can be, we can say, censor, that can be stopped. But some viral content, I believe, I haven't that much idea, but I believe even every Chinese mobile can get that viral content in different means. Not necessary that it will go as a link, not necessarily go as a other format video, but as a, if that is the viral content, every people can have access due to technology. Of course, there are some technological censorship is prevails, and nowadays the world order is somewhat shifting. Maybe US may not remain superpower in terms of economy until 2040. We already discussed. So in power shift situation, sometimes what happens? Country start war via information, and this is the we can say biological war, as a like COVID or other things may come again, and there will be a kind of psy war via social media. So that can be penetrated from one form to another, and this power shift situation means now we can say a kind of transitional phase of global power driving situation. So in this moment, people who are country who have control over anything. So those countries who have control over mainstream international media, they are using that. Those countries who have their social media, they are using that. If you see TikTok as well, TikTok has brought we can say innovation or adoption in the thought process.
Mhm.
People used to watch 3 hour movie, 4 hour movie, 2 hour movie, and the gist is now 15 seconds. So thought process is changing, and the adoption in technology can derive from any country in the world. So we can say now it's a censorship in China. After 5 years, maybe another country will impose censorship, and China will make open. So the time will come. So we will do that. Okay, please.
Okay, Mark. Mark, yeah, I'm coming to you, Mark, because I have a very specific question, and that is, listen, at the turn of the last century, not our century, but in the 1900s, there was a dramatic fight. You could say there was a digital divide at that point, but William Randolph Hearst was actually fighting against Pulitzer to compete to get the eyeballs, which is fundamentally what we're talking about. At the time, it was a paper fight. In New York City and all the way. But those two private companies drove down the cost. Now, I want to pick up what you mentioned earlier, which is the proliferation and the access or the democratization of individuals getting that. Do you see that as a way? I mean, I understand the government. There are those that argue that the onus is on the government as to take care of that. What part do you see as individual action and or private business as bearing the burden, either through private competition to break down the digital censorship and or make sure the information gets out there? Mark and then Nick.
Yeah, I actually see a lot of that going on right now. I do see a lot of organizations and individuals that are using their tools of what is being provided to them through social media to get their message out. I referenced that earlier when I was talking about some of the things that are going on. And definitely this is a powerful tool that is being used by individuals. My good friend Brian Shulman has been doing a lot of things out of California and a number of others as well. So I do think that private individuals, but even sometimes parts of society that aren't necessarily getting their voice heard, they are finding platforms that they can do, whether that's a workshop or a seminar or an expo similar to what we have airing on our network here with the Black Business Olympics and things of that nature. So it is an opportunity for people that are not being heard enough to break those barriers that you are talking about and things along those lines. I was actually going to segue back to Nick, and I know you've also brought up, we wanted to hear Nick's answer to that question, but it was actually something that I was curious about as we're winding down and everything, that I'm hoping Nick will toss it to David as well, because one of the things that I've been concerned about is our education system. And I know that that's one of Nick's favorite topics is the education system. And he mentioned when I first came on that I am a journalism major and I have friends that teach journalism. And I am concerned that too much of the journalism is being taught the old-fashioned way. We're teaching people how to go to work at a television station, how to go to work at a newspaper, how to go to work at a number of these things. And I don't know, even in our big universities like the Harvards and the Princetons of the world, that there's been enough education in digital media. And digital media is a very important part and a driving part of the media landscape. So I'm going to toss it to the question to you, Nick, and I'd love to also hear from David, and it's tied into what we were just talking about with the democratization, because I think that our colleges are also missing the mark in a lot of ways as well. So Nick, it's on you, but I'd love to hear David's thoughts as well as our Gen Z person here in the audience.
Got to have your local Gen Z person. But see, the thing is, censorship is a big one for us, as you know, because we get we distribute a lot through Facebook and then through Facebook groups. So we bring the media to the right people that want to watch the media. And then the problem is that if we talk about certain things, like we talk about COVID-19, we get slapped. The problem that Facebook faces is they're being attacked by major media, and media has a big influence on people. There's no question, because I watch when they go, oh, Facebook's bad, they're bad, they're bad. And this is major media speaking. And then the same time, they're going to have 900 people get murdered on TV tonight. In other words, they're talking out of both mouths. One, they're saying, boy, Facebook, you're bad because you're censoring people. Then Facebook, you're bad because you're not censoring people. In other words, make up your bloody mind. Okay? I mean, and this is major media speaking. What's really going on has nothing to do with what they're saying. What they're trying to do, because they know they're losing market share to Facebook, is to bring Facebook down. And major media is using their platform to bring Facebook down. In other words, it's assault on Facebook. No matter what you do, it's going to be wrong. If you censor Trump, oh, you're breaching freedom of speech. If you don't, oh, you're creating a riot. And they go on and on all night long about that. In the meantime, they're guilty of creating a evening of murders that all your children consume throughout the day. So they have no moral authority. You know, I can't watch NCIS blow up body parts and then they say, well, you know, Facebook's doing something wrong because you're talking about COVID-19. It's an abomination what's going out on media today. Yeah, and if you say something wrong, David, then CBS will never pick you up. You see me, and there's internal retaliation that goes on also as well. So I think that the media has some really hard issues, and you almost have to self-censor, because if I start talking bad about CBS, well, I'm talking right now to the former president of CBS and the former president before that, and then if I talk about, hey, why don't you pick some of our shows up? They go, wait a minute, you're talking bad about us. Forget you. In other words, the media, what I call retaliation that exists. So, David, you're going to have to be very quiet, but you can talk about censorship.
So I have a podcast in 2 minutes, so this will be my last.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, so everything Nick is saying is correct. If Facebook is the devil, then mainstream media is the devil. So, and I want to play a game of, you know, who's worse, but I'll let you all decide that. I want to go back to what the doctor said, because I feel like it really, brings together everything we've been talking about. This whole idea that the United States is an economically declining power is a bunch of hogwash. Countries like Nepal, Brazil, Mexico, you know, I speak Spanish and Portuguese. I've spent a lot of my life abroad. I'm not one of these bumpkins that has been in the United States my whole life. And I can tell you that we talk about 2030, technology is going to revolutionize everything. We live in a world that doesn't make a lot of sense anymore, and technology is going to be that big factor that pushes us forward. And nowhere is less prepared for that than the developing world. Talk about, we have a lot of BS jobs here in the United States. In the developing world, times that by 10. And a lot of those jobs are going to go away with the advent of technology. So I love hearing this idea that somehow these countries that can't even pave a road are somehow going to navigate this technological change. And this is coming from someone who half of my family lives in the developing world. This is not some, gringo opinion that I live in the United States and I don't interact with the developing world. This is going to be a harsh transition for everyone, including the United States. Everyone is woefully unprepared for the technological transformation that is coming. So this is not picking on anyone, but the United States is best prepared out of all the countries for this technological transformation. And I think anyone who bets against America is woefully misinformed. And
sounds like Warren Buffett.
Please never, Nick, if you ever want me to not come back, compare me to Warren Buffett, that horrific monopolist who has done nothing except move money around, is emblematic of everything that is wrong with America, if we want to talk about the opposite.
Yeah.
So
that's the name of the game. You shuffle money around and it all ends up in your pocket. I mean, that's kind of like how Warren works.
Yeah, that's how Warren works. David, I know you got to go.
David, yes, you got to go. Thanks, David. Hopefully we'll be able to see you next week.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That's good. If we talk about rational, that's fine. But if we talk about the sympathy or your sentiment, that's different thing. Okay. If we talk about rational, there is something is changing in the world, and this from multipolar, so bipolar world is changing into the unipolar. It was America, now it's changing into multipolar. It's going to be superpower in multi-part, multi-form. So we have to accept at least fact. So obviously everyone is prepared, and nowadays the country who will be richest is who have the bigger population. Now it has already been proved. Brazil, Indonesia, China, India. If you see, America comes in 5th or 6th in number of population. So nowadays the clear prediction is the country who have a bigger population has chance of being the bigger economy. That's it.
Yeah, that certainly can come true, Dr. Shambhu Pokral. But we're at the hour, so we'd like to thank our guest, Dr. Shambhu Pokral of Biz TV Network. Mark Lee, from the producer of the radio show with Mark Lee, and Bill Trezevant from the Lawyer's Den. We'll see you next week on
And we'll actually
Medium
see, don't forget
Monday.
the show at 2:00. We have a show at 2:00 coming up. We actually got a gentleman coming from Sweden who is actually going to come to the United States to celebrate our diversity. So he is my
Sweet.
guest this afternoon. And then we've got a politician on the Mullins show as well, representing Durham. But I'm looking forward to the conversation at 2:00 with the gentleman David coming from Sweden to celebrate diversity in the United States and around the world. So that should be a great conversation coming your way in less than an hour.
All right. See you on the IBM TV network. Bye.